Mm-hmm.
You were playing what I looked up some chords.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget what they were. There was a G.
Regular old G.
G.
Yep, it's in the key of G.
And then they went to a C and an E minor.
Yep.
You know, they went.
Yep.
And,
right.
But you were playing something a little bit different on that.
Well, here's the chords. Let me explain the chords. A regular old G or G7. Well, I play a lot of the chords without my pinky finger, and I think that's G7. So it's. And this is a.
So you're going up to a.
This is a D. It's a D minor plus 7, I believe is what they call it. D minor, D sharp minor, and then E. So this is a E minor 7. So again, it's G7, D sharp, E minor 7, and that's a C shape with these two fingers, and then bridging the bottom 3 strings. With these other 2 fingers just doing a C-shaped thing. So that's, and then you come down with this B minor, to A minor, and then the D9, and then G. So that's the chords for the main part of the song. There's a couple of more chords that you're going to use as a C minor 7, like that, and then there's a F, F7. And the way that let me just play the first part of it here. Let's see. I'm going to play the little intro. And before I go any further, when you're doing this, you do that. And you can either play the chords, depending on how good you are. You can go, or you can go, whoops, and then catch up. And by the time
you're not doing an E7 there, you're doing an E minor 7.
This is an E minor 7, is what they call it.
That is you're barring this.
Yep, with the C. With those, yep, right.
Instead of, okay. Oh, that's easy.
It's like a C shape with
it's
just
like an
five.
F almost. No, well, yeah.
So let me do this intro first. Okay, and the first verse, there's going to be a couple more chords in here, but let me play the first verse. Sometimes I wonder just what I'm fighting for. I win some battles, and here's where you go to the C minor, but I always, and then down to the F7. The war. I keep on stumbling in this no man's land, but I know there's just gotta be a better world somewhere. So that's the main part of the song. Then there's this little chorus part. I'll play the second verse and then play the chorus. The chorus has some similar chords. It kind of goes like, you use a C9. Every woman I want then to C minor 7, or C minor, and then down to G. Only wants herself. Everybody I love seems to love somebody else, and every woman got a license to break my heart, and every love affair is over before it's got a chance to start. Okay, so that's the chorus. And
when you do your F7, you just
right. And I like with any of these chords, I generally kind of play kind of scratchy, but I like to try to hit that root note.
Yeah.
You know, hit it harder than the other string. That way I can be really twanging at it, but you get that root note. Like, there's the root note on these chords. So I'm going to hit that root note down here. Then this one. See, if I'm hitting that root note, I can thwang at anything and it sounds pretty good. And then, so like playing anything with chords, you hit that root note a little harder and it sounds good. Okay, let me do the second verse and then I'll play the chorus. I'm flying high, and some joker clips my wings just because he gets a kick out of doing those kind of things. I'm falling in space or hanging in midair, but I know there's just gotta be a better world somewhere. Every woman I want only wants herself. Everybody I love seems to love somebody else, and every woman got a license to break my heart. Every love affair is over before it's got a chance to start. That's a little instrumental section. So that's basically all the chords in the tune. And you can take and practice the tune. One of the things that you learn from this tune that you'll learn in other tunes is that basic chord progression. It happens, it's kind of like similar to Stormy Monday, where you, and I do this, but it's a similar chord. Just doing that. I mean, there's one of them +7, one of them well, I don't know what they are, you know. So like where Stormy Monday goes, you're still basically using these same chords, which is a jazzy kind of chord where you have, like, if you're playing in the key of G, you go up to A and up to B. That's a very jazzy thing. So there's a chord progression that you can take from this Better World tune and apply it to other tunes. So I wanted to show you that. That's a tune you can practice, and it's got some little elements of jazz in it that, it's not just your regular old 12 bar kind of thing. And it also, will teach you this little chord progression that'll become part of your repertoire when you try to play a little jazzier stuff or lighter kind of stuff. So, as far as that, I'd say that be something you can study those chords, listen to the tune, and see if you can put it all together. And there's nothing special about that tune other than it does have some good elements of regular blues and those little jazz chords in it. It's a really cool tune.
I listened to B.B. King do it. I mean, he does it differently in whatever you're pulling up.
Oh yeah, he's slightly different. You don't know how many people have asked me, like, how do you play this, and how does it, because there's nowhere that anybody knows, teaches how to play it or anything. And when I go and listen to the B.B. King version of it, it's slightly different. Yeah. I mean, like these slightly different chords or something, but I'm so stuck in the way I play it that I'm not going to be able to learn to play it another way.
But those are the chords that you were playing in your version on YouTube.
Yep, same chords. Let's see. You want me to tell you about that other stuff about the soloing that I was going to? Yeah. Okay. There's one thing that one of the best soloists was Duane Allman, and he developed a way that he would, instead of just whatever came into his head, and he, instead of just playing whatever came into his head, he had an organized way about going about building a solo. And most of these tunes that they're playing they're either 12 bar or 16 bar, whether they're more like a 12 bar song or more like a rock and roll song, which is a 16 bar song. But what they would do, and if you listen to the Allman Brothers, is they would solo in groups of 4 verses. They would they'd sing the verse, and then when it came time for Duane Allman to do his solo, he would solo for 4 verses. And what he would do, within each one of these verses, he had, like I said, an organized way about how to play one little lick, and then how to play the same little lick in the next 4 bar section, but make it sound a little bit different. And then in the next 4 bars, he would play maybe part of the second, the way he played it the second time, and expand upon it and make it a little bit different. And what the end result was that he had a very kind of a system for soloing in, like, let's say let's say we're just doing some kind of 12 bar thing here, and I'll try to do some soloing and show how he would build it. And the idea is that this concept makes it easier to do solos without having to dream up things. It makes it easier to solo because it's more structured. And so what I'll do is I'll play a little bit of some 12 bar or rhythm line and play a little solo over top of it, and I'll show you what I'm trying to show you what I mean. he would do, let me try it again, is he would, let's say he's doing, in the first 4 bars he does a little lick like this. Then in the next 4 bars he'll do something like this. He just did, and then he'll do, and then he'll do maybe, and what he's doing is he's taking he's repeating the first part of the lick and then making the last part of the lick a little bit different, so that it has a repetitive nature to, like, either the first part of or the last part, like I'm doing that, and then doing something a little bit different. It has a repetitive part of it, and then it has a new part of it, that every time you do the lick you do it a little bit different. And that concept is the magic behind why Duane Allman was so good. And it's all right in that being able to play one lick and then play it just slightly different the next time. And he would do one of 2 things: either keep the beginning of the lick the same, like, and then next time you go, or keep the end of the lick the same, like. That's kind of making the beginning of the lick different, but having the second part be repetitive. And the magic about blues is that it blends the repetitive stuff with the new stuff. That is what the magic is. That, you know, you always have that beat going in the background, or that little the same old. It's the being able to blend the same old that's very predictable, that keeps going in the back of your mind, with a little bit of new stuff, a little bit of flavor that you add on top of it. That's the magic of the blues, and that's the magic of how Duane Allman did his guitar solos. And I'm not demonstrating it maybe as well as I could. Let me just play a few more licks and try to demonstrate how, you know, some more of how to just mix them up a little bit. Let me see if, okay, let me give an example that'll work a little bit better. We do the song Whipping Post. It's just like a 16 bars. And a little lead that you might be playing is so you'll have maybe these repeating every time, and then you'll have that little, he'll play like a little lick in there that's just, and then, you know, and then have have the chords repeating, playing a little lick over top of it. Or you can have, like in I'm Tore Down is a tune where they have this kind of this little shuffle thing going in the background. And you've got the shuffle thing. Whoops. Whoops. I'm just not able to incorporate the shuffle part with the little licks like I'm talking about. But what you would do in the Tore Down is you have this shuffle lick, and you'd throw a couple little riffs in there in between the shuffles. The way I play it, I don't play the shuffle part, so it's very hard for me to just do it. That's another example of how you could do it, or that's pretty difficult. You could do with your a little kind of a rhythm line going, with adding these little riffs in them. Kind of like that. I'm not executing it very well, but that's the concept. And again, the whole idea there is to have something familiar. You're playing something familiar, but at the same time you're playing a little solo riff over top. That's something that's a little bit different, not so complicated that it gets you tangled up like I was just getting there. And there's a number of songs, you know, it's tough for me to think of songs right now that do that, but that happens all the time. There's a number of songs where, you know, where the good guitar players are playing that way, and it allows them to have a kind of a system, so they don't have to think about it so much. And if you do, you know, you go listen to whipping posts, like on YouTube or something, and you'll see how that guy Dwayne Allman did that. He was always a pentatonic scale player, never playing any weird scales or anything, but he was incredibly fluent and proficient, and part of that was just because he had that. I mean, he was the only guy to that point that really had that system of where he would play these little riffs and just expand on it. And what he really mostly did was play a riff to start with a little different ending on it. And he would play it's so difficult to explain it. But he would play, you know, he'd play like a little riff, play it one way, and then play like a half of the riff the next 4 bars, like half of the same riff, and half of it would be new. And then the next time he would he'd play that same first half, and then maybe play something in different. For the third set of 4 bars, and then what he would like a lot of times he would do is in the 4th bar he would play something maybe something similar, like let's see if I can think of a good song. The riffs are clear enough so that I can play it as a good example. Okay. There's a good Allman Brothers song, "One Way Out." It goes like, oops. like a one-way out, babe. Oh, I just can't go out today. And he would play his little solo in there. And then he'd play like he'd keep that same old, and then just throw a couple of frills over top of it. So that he would have that familiar kind of going in the background, but a little kind of flourishes over top. I guess that's what you call it. I'm not real great at all of the, you know, the. But that's another good example of how he would, you know, you got that familiar stuff going. So that's another way to do it. And what he would do is if you listen to that song, you'll notice how he's so fluent that he just goes right into the, like he'll be just plugging along. Oops. So that's one of the songs that he probably, I guess maybe that's the clearest example of how he would use the basic, you know, parts of the riff and then add little flourishes onto it. And he'd get to the point, it's tough for me to do it because I'm not that good, but he would, like if he was doing this, he'd be, and he'd like, and then he'd take off on this thing. He'd take off on the second thing he did, and then he may go, you know, and maybe get up here. I guess the concept being that he'd have that basic first part of the riff and use that, keep that going with a couple of flourishes, and then he would take that little flourish and use that as the first part of the little lick and add something onto the end of it. And that's kind of like the second thing that I think he figured out, is that if he you know, took the end part of, like the part that he just added on to the bass riff and kind of used that as his basic thing and built more on that as he kept going along. So yeah, I'm having a tough time describing it because I don't understand it that well. But that was the basic idea behind how he did it and how he stood apart from a lot of these other guys, the Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton. More just played what it came into their head as they played it, and sometimes it sounded a little more disjointed. But Duane Allman, he had the sense to understand that if you play the same, you know, little part of notes, there's some familiarity to it that helps you keep track of where you are in the song, and it helps helps it sound better, even though you may not hit all your notes all right. it sounds good because everybody anticipates it. So and like I said, I don't understand it that well, but that is something that I did notice about Duane Allman when I studied him, is that he had that kind of a systematic approach to building his solos. So again, the idea is you have your little, like your, like if you're doing Born Under Bad Signs, it's just a little riff. And then it's just like, you just add another little flourish on it, although it has the same basic line to it. So that's the one thing that I wanted to talk about. We've been talking about solos, and obviously you can sit there, practice all day, and become fluent, and that would be great if you practice 6 hours a day, and then the notes would just come right in your head. But this is a systematic way to do something. That's just my way of doing everything. Is that if you can find some way where you simplify things and kind of systematize it, it makes it easier to execute, more familiar, and you don't have to think about it so much. So that's kind of an more advanced concept. But I think if you will, when you sit around, you're just playing your little riffs and stuff. When you're sitting around playing with yourself, just think about that. You'll find that it gives you a new outlet, a way to go that you can, keep this. The idea again is to keep the familiar stuff going in the background, and then try a few new things. That way you can play by yourself, and if you're always going to play the background stuff okay. And then if you chop up a couple of riffs, well then a second later you're playing the same old background stuff, so you won't lose your confidence, and you don't feel like everything's all falling apart on you too. But that's one thing I did want to talk about, is how to structure the solo so you start to have a grip on it, so that it's not just like all, there's a million notes out there, and how do you put them all together? This is kind of a structure to it, and it's something that you won't hitch until you start to mess around with it a little bit, or start to think about. If you listen to some of these improvisational types, there's some guys that do that and some that don't. Even Miles Davis, who is like way out there, always had that same kind of the same thing in the background, the same basic musical line in there. Even when he was playing all this weird stuff, still had that same couple of notes in there. He'd play that major note. He'd play like, and play that all day long and have that kind of basic notes going. But then he'd do, all way out there stuff.
All right. Well, I'll keep that in mind.
It's kind of kind of an advanced concept. I don't know if it's something you can, do right away. But it will be something when you start thinking about it. It'll start to mesh with you. Whether you do it on a very simple level or whatever. You just, even if you're just, and then a few flourishes over top of that. Whatever you do, like that. Little bass lines, and it also, it'll give you some insight when you start playing other songs, and you want to put your little flourishes on. If you're just mostly playing rhythm with a few little lead things. Well, when you start thinking about it, you'll maybe make those little lead things sound similar every time you play them in the same song. Maybe there's a part of it you make always be the same, and then a little bit of it that you play a little different.
I think that's one of my problems, is I was all over the place trying to put things together that really didn't go together.
There's just too much all out there to try to put together.
So maybe trying to get one thing and then expand upon it.
Yeah. And when you do, you like the use that for your little bass, you know, bass line that's the basis of your song. You know, that's something that you can play good. You don't have to, you know, think too hard about it. You can get that going, and then just another day in the garage. So what you know, whether you're playing rhythm and you have a couple little licks you play on top, or you've got little bass lines or walking bass lines you're playing, or that little shuffle lines and stuff, you can add those little flourishes over top of that too, and then it'll start. You could start to, you know, sound like something.
Yeah.
You know, and you can. And that is in the large part how I play. Is I play the rhythm with a few little licks over it.
Yeah, I noticed that you do that one thing, you know, where you're.
Yep, that's my favorite thing. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I never realized that before until a couple weeks ago. You said, "Well, this is what I do a lot."
Yeah.
And then when I was watching you play, I see there.
And I have that you know, the right hand thing going. I trained my right hand so I can pick this one coming up on the back, coming back on the way up, or I can pick this one, the second string, and that's part of that right hand. I don't know if you've been did you try thinking about that much?
Yeah.
Right hand, it really is. There is something to it.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. I mean,
I made myself a studio also.
You did?
Yeah. I go out into the camper.
Good.
To practice. That way I don't drive my wife nuts going over and over and over while she's reading.
Right. And you don't have to worry that you're driving her nuts.
Right.
And you can't
Exactly. You're free. So I tell her.
Well, that's why my wife doesn't like to listen to me, especially. I mean, I'm okay now, but I used to play practice, and I would just plinking, you know, I just kind of trial and error, and she didn't stand it. I mean, she doesn't really like it, but before, man, she hated it. I understand. It's because I would just play the hardest stuff, the stuff that I couldn't play. I'd play it over and over, you know, which is good for practice, but not great to listen to.
All right, well, that gives me enough. Will she come next week?
Oh yeah, she's coming, and one or two of her friends are going to be coming. We'll see what happens. Oh, it'll be fine. As long as we can just.
You got 2 hours?
2 hours. Oh yeah. Oh, we got 3 hours. We probably got 4 hours of music. We're gonna play some. We got an Allman Brothers medley that we play. It's probably the most difficult thing that we play. You know, it's pretty heavy duty guitar stuff.
Oh, we're still on here.